I want you to picture a scene. You're standing in a logistics yard, maybe just outside Johannesburg or Durban.
Okay.
It's early morning, sun's just hitting the pavement, and from where you're standing, everything looks, well, immaculate.
Right. You've got a fleet of massive, reliable trucks all lined up.
Exactly. These are assets worth millions. The engines are idling. You hear that low rumble of diesel power.
The drivers are professional. They're checking their logs, ready to roll.
And if you walked into the office and opened the order book, it's full. Contracts signed, deliveries scheduled for weeks.
It's the picture-perfect image of success. On the surface, that business is winning.
Exactly. But this is a deep dive, so we're not here for the surface level.
Yeah.
We're looking at a report from Greystride today that suggests for many operators in this exact position, the reality is terrifyingly different. The owner looking at those trucks doesn't feel successful. They feel a sense of dread. They feel like they're running up a steep hill carrying a heavy pack, and the ground is slowly crumbling beneath them.
That is a very specific type of friction. And it's not mechanical. The trucks are fine.
Right.
It's not operational. The drivers are there. It's financial.
Right.
And the Greystride analysis suggests that you can be profitable on paper, showing a lovely net profit at the end of the year, and yet still go bust before the end of the month.
That is the paradox we're unpacking today. We're talking about working capital.
Right.
And before you hit skip, because that sounds like dry accounting theory from a dusty textbook, the source material makes a compelling case that this is actually the lifeline of the trucking industry.
It really is.
This isn't about spreadsheets. It's about why businesses with great clients and great trucks still fail.
It's the vital sign. If revenue is the vanity metric, what you brag about at a Breck Working Capital is the sanity metric. It's the blood pressure of the company.
So the mission today is to figure out how a business can be fully booked, yet struggle to survive, and specifically how fixing this one metric working capital changes a company from just surviving to actually growing. Let's start with the definition, but let's keep it practical. When Greystride talks about working capital in a logistics context, what are they actually pointing to?
We need to strip away the textbook definitions. Simply put, working capital is the liquidity you have available to handle the right now.
Right now.
Yeah, it's the gap between your current assets like cash and unpaid invoices and your current liabilities. But in trucking, it's visceral. It's not the book value of the truck sitting in the yard. You can't slice off a piece of a trailer to pay for lunch.
Right. Try buying a sandwich with a steering wheel. It doesn't work.
Precisely. It is the cash you can access today to keep the wheels turning. And that distinction between being asset-rich and cash-poor is critical because of the nature of the costs in this industry.
The daily grind, as the article calls it. I think people outside the industry underestimate just how relentless the immediate cash demands are in trucking.
Oh, absolutely. It's not like an office job where your main cost is rent once a month. It is a cash-hungry beast that eats every single day. Look at the breakdown Greystride provides. First, and most obviously, you have fuel.
Of course.
In South Africa especially, fuel is a massive percentage of the cost per kilometer. And here's the kicker. You generally can't negotiate payment terms with a fuel pump.
No. The truck stops if the card declines. There is no pay you in 30 days at the forecourt. You fill up, you pay, or you don't move.
Exactly. Then you have driver wages. People need to eat.
Right.
If you miss payroll or even delay it by a day, your trucks stop moving immediately.
It's got tolls.
Thousands of rands instantly on a long-haul route. You have insurance premiums, which are non-negotiable. If that debit order bounces, your fleet is uninsured and you are illegal on the road.
And the text had a line I liked. Tires don't last forever.
They really don't. And given the road conditions on some of the major freight corridors, wear and tear is accelerated. A blown tire isn't an if, it is a when. And you need cash to replace it now, not next month.
So you have this constant high-pressure stream of cash flowing out just to maintain the status quo.
A torrent of it.
So if working capital is the money to cover that stream, the stakes are, well, they're existential. The article implies that without this liquid capital, your contracts are effectively hallucinations.
That's the brutal truth. You can hold a contract worth 10 million rand, it looks beautiful on your desk.
10 million.
But if you don't have the 50,000 rand in cash to fuel the trucks for the first week of trips, that 10 million rand contract is worth zero. You cannot service it. The business sinks not because it lacks customers, but because it lacks the fuel, literally and metaphorically, to get to the payday.
This leads us to the structural trap. The expert analysis from Greystride points out a fundamental flaw in the industry's design. It's almost unfair when you look at it from the outside.
Unfair is a word a lot of operators would use, and they wouldn't be wrong. Greystride summarizes it as, costs come first, payments come later.
Which sounds simple, almost like a nursery rhyme, but let's put numbers to it. Because the gap between those two things is where the bodies are buried.
It is the timing gap. Think about the industry norms. You burn the diesel today. You pay the driver this week. You pay the toll the moment you cross the boom.
All instant.
But the client, the big corporate shipper or the retail giant?
They aren't paying today.
Hardly. Standard terms might be 30 days from statement, but in reality, it's often 60 days.
60.
Sometimes 90 days.
90 days. That's a quarter of a year.
Yeah.
So essentially, the trucking company is acting as a bank for its own client.
That is exactly what is happening. You're financing their logistics. You are effectively lending them the cost of the transport for 3 months, interest-free.
Wow.
You're paying for their fuel, their driver, their wear and tear, and they are reimbursing you a season later.
That is a heavy realization. You perform the service, you incur the cost, and then you wait 90 days to get your money back plus your profit.
And that gap, that 30 to 90-day valley of death, is where working capital lives or dies. If you don't have the reserves to bridge that gap, you suffocate. You literally run out of oxygen before you reach the surface.
It's like holding your breath. The expense is the inhale, and you can't exhale the payment for 90 seconds. Eventually, you pass out.
That's a perfect analogy, and Greystride describes that passing out phase vividly. They call it the downward spiral or financial firefighting.
Financial firefighting. I feel like that phrase triggers a stress response just hearing it.
It should.
It implies you're no longer managing the business, you're just reacting to disasters. What does that look like on the
That's
ground?
ugly. It starts with the morning routine. Instead of checking operations or looking for new business, you wake up, check the bank balance, and realize it's not enough.
Oh no.
So you start making impossible choices. Who do I stiff today?
Do I pay the fuel supplier so the trucks can run? Or do I pay the insurance so I'm covered if they crash? Or the mechanic?
Right. The mechanic who is holding your spare trailer hostage until the invoice is settled. You start prioritizing based on who is shouting the loudest or who is most critical to the next hour of operations. It is short-termism at its worst.
And the article mentions that this is where businesses start turning down work. Which seems, it's counterintuitive. If you're broke, shouldn't you take every job you can get?
You would think so, but remember, every new job requires upfront cash. If a new client calls and says, I have 10 loads from Durban to JHB, you need to fund the diesel and tolls for those 10 loads before you see a cent. If you're already firefighting, you literally cannot afford the startup costs of that new revenue.
So you say no to revenue because you don't have the working capital to generate it. You're starving. But you can't afford to buy the ingredients to cook a meal.
Exactly. And then the snowball effect kicks in. It's not just one bad day, it cascades. Let's trace the chain reaction Greystride describes.
Okay, walk us through it.
A major client pays you a week late. Just 1 week. But because you are running on fumes, that delay forces you to delay paying your tire supplier.
Now the tire supplier is angry.
Right. So next time you need tires, they put you on cash on delivery only. No more credit terms.
So your cash flow is even tighter.
No, your cash flow is even tighter because you lost that 30-day grace period from the supplier. Your relationship is strained. They stop prioritizing your service.
And in trucking, something always breaks.
Always. Greystride gives a vivid example of the breakdown scenario. Imagine one of your trucks breaks down on the N3 with a full load.
High pressure. The client is waiting. The goods are on the trailer.
If you have healthy working capital, you call a mobile mechanic, you pay the call-out fee, you buy the part, and the truck is moving in 4 hours. It's a hiccup. It's annoying, but it's manageable.
But if you're in the firefighting phase,
you don't have the cash for the part, or the mechanic refuses to come out because you owe him for the last job, so the truck sits.
And 4 hours becomes...
And 4 hours becomes 24 hours.
Now you've missed the delivery window.
The client is furious. They might hit you with a penalty fee, deducting it from that invoice you're desperate for. Or worse, if it happens twice, they pull the contract entirely.
So a lack of cash flow doesn't just hurt the bank balance. It destroys the long-term asset, the client relationship.
Precisely. That is why the source warns that a business can be busy but still losing ground financially. You're running full speed, burning diesel and wearing out trucks, but because of the debt servicing, the penalties, and the inefficiencies of being broke, you are slowly sinking.
It's a grim picture. But we promise not to just bring doom and gloom. Greystride's mission here is to highlight the solution. They talk about flipping the script. What happens when you actually solve this working capital equation?
It creates a virtuous cycle. It's the anti-death spiral. When working capital is healthy, you aren't just surviving, you're optimizing.
Okay.
The first thing you buy with that extra cash is operational smoothness.
Smoothness. That sounds like a little luxury after all that firefighting.
It means peace of mind. Expenses are covered on time. No dodging calls from suppliers. But more importantly, it gives you leverage.
Leverage how? I usually think of leverage as something big banks have, not trucking companies.
Think about your suppliers. If you're the trucking company that pays immediately or even early, you become a VIP customer.
Ah, I see.
You can negotiate. You can say, I'll pay you within 48 hours, but I want a 5% settlement discount.
Ah, so having cash actually makes running the business cheaper.
Significantly cheaper. You get better rates on parts. You get priority service. If there's a fuel shortage, the supplier fills your tank first because they know your check clears.
So it lowers your cost of doing business.
Which increases your margin, which gives you more cash. That is the cycle.
And the text calls capital a shock absorber.
Like the shocks on the truck itself, markets fluctuate. Maybe the fuel price hikes unexpectedly by 2 rand a liter overnight. Maybe there's a strike at the port.
Yeah.
If you have a capital buffer, these are just bumps in the road. You absorb the shock and keep moving. If you have no buffer, that bump flips the truck.
And I suppose this links back to that issue of taking on new work. If you have the cash, you don't have to turn down that big new contract.
This is the most exciting part: capacity for growth. Big contracts usually mean big upfront costs.
Right.
If a retailer wants you to add 5 trucks to a route, you need to recruit drivers, insure vehicles, fill tanks. You need to fund that ramp up. Healthy working capital is the bridge that allows you to walk over and claim that new revenue.
So it shifts the mindset completely. The article mentions moving from survival to using capital as a growth tool.
Yes. Instead of waking up worrying about which bill to pay, you wake up thinking about expansion. You stop looking at your shoes and start looking at the horizon.
Let's get specific on that growth. What kind of moves does Greystride say become possible when you have this liquidity?
They mention a few specific strategies. One is fleet upgrades, replacing older trailers or trucks.
Which saves money in the long run, right?
Yeah. Huge savings. Newer trucks have better fuel efficiency and fewer breakdowns, but you can't buy them if you're broke. Even if you know they save money, it's the poor man's tax, paying more to run old equipment because you can't afford new equipment.
Working capital lets you escape that trap.
Exactly. It also gives you the confidence to diversify. You can take on different types of clients. Maybe you take a contract that pays a bit slower but offers much higher margins.
You can only do that if you can afford to wait.
Only if you have the cash reserves to wait. Or maybe you keep a cash reserve just for opportunities, buying a competitor's trailer at an auction because they went bust and you have cash on hand.
So the goal is to stop working capital from being a constant worry and turn it into a driver of stability.
That is the shift, from an anchor dragging you back to an engine pushing you forward.
Okay, this all sounds great. Get more money. Easy, right? But for the person listening who is actually running a fleet, maybe feeling that pinch right now, how do they get there? The source provides a bit of a reality check here.
It does, and I think it's important to validate the listener here. The article acknowledges that feeling the pinch is very common across South Africa. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad business owner. The system is designed to squeeze you.
Right, it's the industry payment cycles. It's the nature of the beast.
It is, but you can't just accept it. Greystride suggests a self-audit. They offer 3 critical questions that every operator needs to ask themselves to regain control.
Okay.
And these aren't just yes or no questions. They're deep dives into your own books.
I love a good checklist that brings things down to earth. Let's run through them. What is question number 1?
Question 1. Do I clearly know my monthly operating costs versus my cash inflows?
That sounds basic. Shouldn't every business owner know that?
You'd be surprised. In the chaos of the day-to-day, a lot of people are guessing. They look at the bank balance, not the cash flow statement. They confuse invoiced with paid. You might have invoiced 1 million rand this month, but if 0 rand hit the bank, your inflow is 0. You need to know exactly what is going out versus what is physically hitting the account and when.
It's about timing, not just totals. Okay, question number 2.
Am I relying too heavily on delayed customer payments to cover immediate expenses?
That is the timing gap question again.
It is. If you're praying for client A to pay their invoice on Tuesday just so you can fill the trucks with diesel on Wednesday, you are in the danger zone.
No margin for error.
You have no margin for error. You're over-reliant on something you cannot control. You're effectively letting your client manage your cash flow for you.
That's a scary place to be. And the third question,
Do I have a buffer for emergencies or unexpected breakdowns?
the shock absorber.
Exactly. If one blown tire ruins your month, or if one truck needing a new gearbox puts you out of business, you don't have a business, you have a gamble. Answering these questions honestly gives you clarity. It tells you exactly where the leaks are in your boat.
And clarity is the first step to fixing it. Whether that means securing a line of credit, factoring your invoices to get paid faster, or just building up a cash reserve during the good months.
Right. Greystride doesn't give a one-size-fits-all financial product, but they emphasize that you have to solve the liquidity problem before you try to solve the growth problem. You cannot build a skyscraper on a swamp.
We've covered a lot here. We've gone from the sunny truck yard to the stress of the 90-day invoice and back to the solution. It really reframes how you look at a passing truck on the highway.
It does. And I think if we summarize the core message from Greystride, it is that in the trucking world, we tend to obsess over the visible assets. The shiny cabs, the branded trailers, the drivers in uniform.
So that's the business, right?
Yeah.
That's what we see on the road. That's what we take photos of for the website.
It is. But working capital is the invisible asset. It's the dark matter holding the universe together. The text calls it the fuel that keeps the business moving forward just as much as diesel does.
Without it, the best trucks in the world are just heavy metal statues collecting rust in the yard.
Correct. And with it, you get stability for today and flexibility for tomorrow. You get to sleep at night.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, here is something to chew on. We talked about the difference between being profitable and having cash flow.
Yes, the fundamental distinction.
It makes you wonder, if you have a business that looks great on paper, lots of contracts, lots of profit, lots of activity, but it fails because you couldn't bridge a 90-day invoice gap. Was it ever really a successful business?
That is the provocative question.
Or was it just a busy one?
The source suggests that true success isn't just winning the contract. It's having the systems and the capital to survive the fulfillment of that contract. True success is sustainable.
A busy business burns out. A successful business keeps on trucking. That's it for this deep dive into working capital. Thanks for riding along with us.
Safe travels.
See you on the next one.